Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the psych coach, and today I'm going to be talking to you about managing your anxiety. Anxiety is not a pleasant emotion, but at times it is necessary. It's our way of gauging risk. But if you experience quite profound anxiety, a lot of the time, there is a high chance that you will be overestimating the likelihood of a bad thing happening, and with that, you will be underestimating your ability to cope. So part of managing anxiety from a cognitive perspective is about being realistic about the likelihood of the bad thing happening, and indeed being realistic about your ability to cope. However, there are certain behaviours that when people are anxious, they are inclined to engage with, but actually make the anxiety worse. By engaging in these behaviours, no matter how rationally you try and think about a situation, you simply won't buy into it if your behaviours aren't consistent with the more rational way of thinking. There's one behaviour in particular that people who suffer with anxiety are often heavily inclined to engage with, but it is the number one thing that will be a maintaining factor with anxiety. What is it? It is avoidance. Avoidance is totally understandable. If there is a situation that is causing you to feel anxious, it's totally sensible that you would want to avoid that. But the more you avoid that, the worse the situation becomes and the bigger an issue it becomes in your head. If you're socially anxious and you avoid social situations, your anxiety will ramp up over the weeks, the months, the years when it comes to having to deal with social situations. If you are anxious about doing exams and you try and hide away from them, you are sick on the days they happen, you will avoid doing certain things because you know exams are at the end of it, then you're going to have a very high level of anxiety if any test or exam presents itself. If you don't like public speaking and part of your job requires that and you call in sick on the days where you're meant to be public speaking, that avoidance is going to make the problem even worse. If you find it difficult to ask for help in shops, if you find it difficult to say about a complaint in a restaurant, you're potentially going to avoid it. But by avoiding it, you make an even bigger issue out of it. So if there is one thing you can do to hugely help yourself when it comes to managing your anxiety, it is to stop avoidance. Avoidance absolutely makes it worse. And even if it's really difficult to avoid things totally, try and stop avoiding as much as you are. Even making a small change in the amount of avoidance you're engaging with will have a positive effect on your anxiety. Avoidance is understandable, don't beat yourself up about it, but do know it's not going to be helping the issue. Sometimes people will engage in mental avoidance, which is where you may be dealing with an incredibly stressful situation, but actually you're trying to take your mind away from it and you're focusing on something else. Sometimes that could be useful because you could say, well, that's a healthy distraction. But if it's stopping you from actually confronting a problem that you need to be dealing with, it's avoidance. And again, even if you're in the situation, but your head is outside of it and you're focusing on something else, it still counts as avoidance, and you need to try and shift your focus onto the situation that needs you to address it. Hold on to the fact that continued avoidance won't help. Chip away at it, make some progress with a bit of exposure and see how you get on, because thinking in a healthier way about your anxiety and indeed behaving in a healthier way is what's going to move it along and make progress. If you've enjoyed today's tips, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I will give you plenty more tips on how you can use psychology on a day-to-day basis.